Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Duping the Vibes video. It seems like that's the only thing I'm doing these days and I love it. I was just talking to someone on Instagram saying, I just could do this as a job. I love it. Give me all the singles, give me all the palettes, I'll dupe them for you. Or just give me all the singles and I'll dupe the vibes for you. Anyways, we are here to dupe the vibes of the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. I wanted it, then I didn't want it anymore, then I found dupes, and now I want it. Can it be more schizophrenic than that? I don't think so. But I'm gonna try to walk you through the shades that I found that are similar, the shades that I did not find similar, and my thoughts on the palette in general. Now, the Bronze palette is the latest release from Natasha Denona. It costs 65 euros or $65 and it is a midi palette. That means that it has the same size eyeshadow pans as Metropolis, Sunrise, not Sunset, one of the two. One is big, one is small. It has the same pan size as the Love palette and it's an in-between size. The big eyeshadows from Natasha Denona contain around 2 or 2.5 grams, and the smaller ones, the midi size, contains over a gram 1.2, I think, which is plenty. So I love that she's doing more of these midi sizes. The palette contains 15 shades of bronzes, and she explained in her stories on this palette how she has a section of more reddy bronzes, a section of more yellow bronzes, and a section of more neutral bronzes. And yeah, I mentioned this in my previous videos. I had a hard time finding the bronze in those things. I thought bronze was like more of a neutral, dirty, brown, metallic look, but that's like old bronze. Whereas like fresh bronze is anyways an alloy of copper with zinc or tin, but I think it's zinc or tin. One of the two. I'm a materials engineer. I should know these things. It's been too long. But it has a lot of a coppery flavor in there, a lot of a coppery color tone in there. So, nevertheless, I saw the palette the first time and I was like, I need it. Then I saw the swatches and I'm like, no, it's too warm. Now I looked for dupes and I created this makeup look with my dupes and I said, how did I think I didn't like warm tones anymore? I love this makeup. It's almost made for me, for my colorings. I love this makeup. I'm so sorry. Anyways, let's get started with my dupes. I'm gonna show you the palette that I put together. This is it right here. I tried to copy the vibes of that palette as much as possible with eyeshadows that are available individually. Because I think I could even dupe this with just my Metropolis palette. And let me show you what I mean. I took out the shades from the Metropolis palette that I thought were dupes or similar shades to the one in the Bronze palette, and to these two palettes together I think can dupe that Bronze palette quite easily. And actually there's two shades in this one right here that are from the Metropolis, because one of the things that Natasha Denona does really well is interesting textures. We talked about it during my Duping the Vibes of the Gold palette right here, and we discussed about indeed the texture and the special, how special these shades are. A lot of these shades I think are quite similar also to the ones in the Bronze palette. There is a girl here on YouTube, Kinky Sweat is her channel. She did a really good in-depth comparison of the new Bronze palette with other Natasha Denona palettes, so I'll leave you to go there to see that one because I don't have the palette. This is more of a duping the vibes, finding some singles that are very similar and seeing how you might not buy it if you don't need it or buy just one or two shades. Next up, palette that I think is very similar or gave me this very similar vibes to the Natasha Denona Bronze is a new entry in my collection, but it's out for a little bit already, which is the Dreamy 2 by Nabla Cosmetics. Now, what makes me specifically say this is this guy offline. This is what I have in my outer corner today. It is a deep eggplant purpley shade in a latex matte formula, which is very similar to the creamy mattes of Natasha Denona, which is what the shade, the purple shade in the Natasha Denona is. So I think this is pretty much a dead down dupe. There is another beautiful red, another warm brown, some golds with special, I don't know, with a special texture. There is this very fiery hot duochrome shimmer with sparkle. It's so similar. It has a lot of the same vibes. This one throws me off a lot because of the two purples, but even then, I think she put in a duochrome with a little bit of a, like a deep plum with a little bit of a purple silvery shift that could be actually similar to them. There's a lot in here that is in that palette. So I would say if you have this, or if this was ever on your radar, it's half the price, I think. You can, Nabla often does sales and you can grab this for half the price. That said, let's get into the swatches. I am going off of swatches that I've seen from my friend Elsa from Like a Candy Shop. You can go check out also her swatches on Instagram, but especially her video of first impressions on her YouTube channel was really nice. And Kinky Sweats and the Natasha Denona swatches off of her stories that she did. Those were the first swatches that really told me, Alice, I don't think you need it, because there are so many warm golds in there, just like there are so many warm golds in Metropolis, just like there's so many warm golds in gold. She likes her warm golds, I understand. Maybe too many. Now I'm talking myself out of it. Maybe this will work. Let's keep going. First shade in the Natasha Denona Bronze palette is a True Copper. It's called True Copper, and I have two options for this. This one right here is the shade Crackle from Colourpop. So this is your single eyeshadow that you can go buy. It's what I'm wearing on the inner part of my lower lash line today. It's really metallic, popping, it applies really well, it really looks good. The other shade is from the Metropolis palette, which is another, even more copper and less orange, metallic shade. Beautiful. Do I need more coppers in my life? Not likely, no. So I would call this good and done. That's the first shade. The second shade is a warm brown, and I am having a hard time exactly fitting the right undertone. If you've seen me decluttering my single eyeshadow collection, you know that I have a ton of warm browns. Here is my warm brown palette, missing a lot of these shades that we used here in this guy, in this duping, but I have a lot of these shades that could dupe this eyeshadow. I picked what is my favorite shade of warm brown, which is Cinnamon by Nabla Cosmetics. And this one might be a little bit less orange than the one in the palette. So what I did today is actually mix in a shade from the Metropolis palette, which is actually a bright orange terracotta matte. I didn't actually pick up enough, which is this guy right here. Could work. Or a creamy matte from Metropolis, which is this guy right here, which is even more orangey. Few different options. You can really see that Cinnamon isn't that warm actually in the overall, but I'm not sure what the exact dupe shade is because I don't have the palette, but of course I'm trying here. Again, a lot of options for warm browns. Maybe I can actually read through a few of the shades in here that I thought could also be good. And we are talking about Top Notch by Colourpop. We are talking about Cabin Fever by Makeup Geek. We are talking about Sidekick by Makeup Geek. Cocoa Bear, or rather Cheetah Bear, is the new version of that. There's plenty. There is plenty of warm brown shades that you could go for. Then we move into a more transition shade. I think it's called Sun Something. It's more of a warm orangey transition, I feel like. And I picked Koi from Colourpop. And it's similar to something like Chickadee by Makeup Geek. It is a warm, orangey type of transition. Not really unique. And also not something you'd buy the palette for, I feel like. I think this is just a good accompanying eyeshadow, and I think that's something that she did well, and she does well in all of her palettes, is making sure there's shades that you can do your full gradient with. That's also how she does her makeup. I realized that I really like her palettes because it's the same way I do my makeup, so using many gradients of the same color. Not saying that I do my makeup like Natasha Denona does, or like that she's on a different level from me. Of course, I'm just saying the principle is the same. Next up is this gorgeous, deep, plummy, dark shade, and I picked Razy by Colourpop, and that's the powder version right here and the single version right here. It's gorgeous. It's really, really pretty. But as I said, what is actually the closest thing to a dupe is Offline right here by Nabla. Oh my god, so beautiful, so beautiful. And that's this guy right here. You can see the texture is more latex-like, more creamy, and I think this one is pretty much a dead down dupe. So if you have the Dreamy palette, I again think you don't need the bronze palette, she says, while still thinking of buying it. The final shade in the first row is this duochrome plum with the silvery shift on top. I don't have anything like that, unfortunately, and I feel like it's actually a similar situation as the teal shimmer sparkle in the gold palette that I was discussing in my previous video, where the base is less pigmented with a lot of sparkle on top. So we can take a look again in the Dreamy palette at the shade Rem, but this definitely has, let me pick up enough, where can I put it? Here. This definitely has a very, it's very cool toned, I think, much more cool toned than the one in the palette. And then other option is Insomnia by Makeup Geek, or Blue Brown, or Camaleonte by Neve, something in those lines. It's not gonna be the same because I think the Natasha Denona one has the sparkle and it's gonna look really, really beautiful. Yeah, I know. So that was the first row of options that I found to dupe this palette. Let's move on to the second row, and here we're talking about warm red shades, bronzes. Anyways, I have two options for you. One is Makeup Geek Brick House, which is a brick red shade right here. I really like it. It works well. It's somewhat of a, still somewhat of a neutral, whereas still being very red. And the other option, for example, could be Blazing by Anastasia Beverly Hills. And that's that one right here. It's a little bit less saturated, but extremely similar. And now I am getting red eyeshadow on my beautiful linen jumpsuit. 1 second. Anyways, here is my option for the very warm red toned matte. Then we have a Redstone bronze shimmer, and I have one option from Lethal Cosmetics. This guy right here is called Defiance. I think it's a little bit light for the shade compared to the shade that is in the Natasha Denona palette, but I think it fits really, really well in this palette and with these mattes. So that is Defiance. The other one is a little shade from Metropolis. This guy right here, which by the way, this is the size that the pans are gonna be in the bronze palette, and it's the size, and they're gonna be magnetic again. And this guy right here instead, I think, is actually much closer because it's a little bit more red. So here you have a dupe for those. Then we have a beautiful yellowy, warm bronze, gold. Calling these shades names is very difficult. And one of my favorite shades in that realm, and I'm also wearing it today, is Untamed by Makeup Geek. and it's this guy right here. It's like a warm gold, orangey, deep, coppery bronze. I can just say all of the metal names because it doesn't really matter at this point, since this whole palette is called bronze, but I don't think there's actual all bronzes in here. So it is what it is. And again, an option from Metropolis. This guy right here. And I guess it's gonna go on my bone. And this guy is a little bit more old gold, as you can see. But then again, same high shine formula, same idea. And that is a little bit my problem. It's like the idea of these shades is all the same. In gold, I can probably find more of these in gold. Let me see. This guy, for example, same thing. Let me swatch it for you. He's called Oro, of course. And more gold still. So there's options. As you can see, a lot of the shimmers I think are easier duped with Natasha Denona shades because of the textures that she uses in her eyeshadows that are so incredibly nice. I just stuck my finger in an eyeshadow. Next up we have a mustard matte, and I am gonna go again with Colourpop Paper Tiger right here. This is getting so dry. It's quite an old shadow for me. I bought it when it launched a few years ago and I swatched it a lot. So it's that shadow right there. I also have the yellow that is in Metropolis to show you, which is another yellow matte. And then of course we have the mustard shade in gold called Dijon, of course, Dijon mustard. And that guy goes right here. Ooh, the difference is actually really striking right now. This swatch was not really good, my apologies. So indeed, like, there's options for this as well. And then we have another gold bronze shade, and here I actually wanted to put a shade from the Metropolis palette because in the bronze palette we have one of these very chunky glittery shades that Natasha Denona is very good at, and here it is. And I am wearing that on my inner lid today, and oh my goodness, it is bomb, like amazing. Amazing. No, it's really nice, and I really like that chunky shade. Again, we have something similar here in the gold, but this is a regular shimmer, let's say, so it's not as textures as I'd like it. And we have something similar in the Dreamy 2 palette, which is called Libertine down here, but I think it's a little bit less warm as the one in the palette. That's Liberty right there. So you can see that it's much more cool toned, of a not as warm of a gold as the ones in the bronze palette, I think. Let's move on to the last row. Here we're like full on shimmer house. I love it. And I have a hard time actually seeing a little bit the difference in undertones in the two red shades. And I'm gonna show you one that I thought was a good alternative, and it's this shade here that's called Thank You Next by Colourpop. This is a duochrome or trichrome between copper, pink, and yeah, maybe terracotta. It is stunning. It's what I have on the outer side of my lid today. And maybe it has a little bit more pink than the bronze palette has, but I think vibe-wise, we're there. It gives you the same shine, and look at that, so beautiful. And that is, I think, a good option as an alternative. The other shade that is in the palette, and I'm gonna skip one and get back to it later, that is also a red, has a more peachy red, or like a more, I don't know, has a more pinky red with a peach shift, and I picked the shade Salamander by Clionadh Cosmetics. This is one of her regular shadows, not one of the multi-chromes. And I think this is very similar to the one in the Natasha Denona Bronze palette, whereas this one has a bit too much pink And the previous shade that I was trying to dupe is more of a red with a copper shift. And I don't have one of those actually. It's very interesting why I don't, because it sounds very reasonable to me to have a red with a copper shift in my collection, but I don't, so that's exciting. Then we go to a shade that is called Rhodium, and here I am completely at a loss because in some swatches it's much more pink toned and in some swatches it's much more warm toned. So I picked from Nabla Cosmetics the shade Glitz. It's a beautiful bronze eyeshadow that is not so warm, and I thought that was the idea, not to go too warm. This is Glitz. I thought it looked very pretty in this combination, very different from the other ones. Then we have another warm bronze, and this I duped with a shade from the Metropolis palette. Let me see if I can swatch up here, and it's this guy right here. And you can see that it's quite different, or like quite different. It would actually look okay with these guys on the bottom here, but it's different still. It's a little bit warmer and darker, let's say, for a base. Somewhere in here, I would have liked to see something like Makeup Geek Legend, which, let me swatch it here and then you can see it better, which is this guy right here, which is a more orangey base with a lighter shimmer on top, and I don't think it is in the palette, or if it is, well, this is the option. This is Makeup Geek Legend. I have it both in the new formula and the old formula, and they're exactly the same. So that is one of the shades that I'm a little bit missing in this palette, and something similar that I would expect to have seen that is in the Metropolis palette instead is this guy right here. Or maybe I showed you this one. No, I didn't. This one is a different one. Again, it's more of a, I think this is more bronze than, I don't know, this one or any of these, which I think are still close to the one in the palette. And then finally there's a shade called Beach, I think it's called, and it's a lighter transition shade. There is no real highlight shade in this palette. I picked Peach Smoothie by Makeup Geek. This is in the old pan. And Peach Smoothie is one of my favorite shades ever. You'll not see it on my skin tone. Oh yeah, maybe yes. It's so good for a transition shade. I used it today. It sets your primer and it gives you a little bit of a color, but not really. It doesn't start you with a strong color to blend on. It helps with blending. Another option from the new Makeup Geek line and old one, but I have the square pan for this, is Creme Brulee. I actually hit pan and Creme Brulee from the previous formulation in the round pans, because it's also amazing. It's a little bit darker, a little bit more brown, a little bit less peachy, but that could also be a good option. From the not Metropolitan, but Metropolis palette, we have another neutral, light neutral, but I think this one is a bit too yellow. You can barely see it up here on my hand. So that was my spiel on duping the vibes of the bronze palette. I am left with a lot of questions whether I want it or not, and by the time you will see this video, I will have already either bought it or not. There was a Sephora sale coming up for me today on Sephora Italy, and that would be the case of something that I would buy it with 20% off. Probably I would, and that is what is actually tempting me most of all. Because maybe I wouldn't buy it full price, but in with 20% there is a chance, not so remote, that I will be purchasing this palette. Let me know what you thought about this video, what you thought about my dupes. If you can dupe it yourself, let me know. I'm curious to hear if you bought it, if you think we should just all buy all the Natasha Denona palettes, declutter everything else, and happy days. Talking about decluttering, you reminded me actually, I reminded myself that something also in similar vibes is soft glam, right? Kinda, not a lot, but kinda. We have some peaches, some browns. Maybe this guy is what reminded me the most. And a red toned. Not sure. I didn't think this was dupe enough, but it reminded me of that, and I would probably declutter Soft Glam if I got bronze. I think that would be my trade-off. Me and my sweatiness, because I see like now I'm actually shining on camera, are gonna go and sit in front of the fan because it's so warm today and this week. Heat wave, thank you. But thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was useful for you. You will find all the names of the eyeshadows in the description box below as usual. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!